Oh, you like it? Thank you.
I like. Cheers.
Oh, thank you. Hey, L'Haim, bro, right here.
Oh shit. Maybe I should have gotten a whiskey.
Yeah, what are you sipping on?
Oh, I just got LaCroix right now. It's orange though. Best flavor.
Oh, I get that. That's a party flavor. That's a party flavor.
Party flavor.
Yeah,
As opposed
you.
to
Oh, that bitch ass lime. Yeah, the lime. Yeah, get out of here.
yeah, the lime is actually the worst. It's not a party flavor at all.
No,
It's not even a kickback flavor.
no, the lime is the leftover. What's the crappiest popsicles that are left? What is it? The
Oh yeah,
orange
yeah.
flavor? Was it
The
orange
lime
flavor?
green ones, lime
Yeah.
green ones, and like purple.
Oh, lime green can go to hell, dude.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
name one thing that you're like, oh, get the green one. Nobody takes the green one.
Not at all. But the
It-
sparkling water game has really evolved over the past year. I'm not even a LaCroix man anymore. I
No.
drink bubbly mostly.
Oh,
That's
is that you? That's That's bougie. So that's did that spark you when Michael Bublé started endorsing it, or were you preschool before that?
I just assumed it was Buble from the beginning.
Ah, like you're doing it. You're like, I'm just doing this to support the guy. Like,
Yeah, I'm definitely not doing it to support Michael Bublé, but it definitely made me change my opinion of him. I was like, okay, well,
right, right.
this guy's
Yeah.
about the bubbles and the flavor.
Uh-huh.
He knows.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
he
I don't care.
obviously has good taste.
Yeah, he keeps redoing everybody else's music. So you're not really trying hard. So at least he's doing the work. He's doing the Lord's work with Bubbly. So that's all. So more important.
Big time.
Where are you at?
Is the show already? Are we already
Yeah,
recording on
yeah.
this show?
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah.
All right. Well, I appreciate you having me on. Big time.
Oh,
It's
dude,
exciting.
hey, man, this is the whole layout here is, man. We're just a bunch of neighbors. That's all we're doing, man. We're just kicking the shits, and that's what we're doing. Yeah. Where are you at right now? Are you traveling? Are you in OKC?
Yeah, I'm back home in Oklahoma City, where I'm born and
Yeah.
raised. I'm staying here for about another week. I'm updating a clothing store that I built out and invested in about a year and a half ago
Yeah.
with a buddy of mine. It's kind of one of those expensive streetwear stores where like you walk in and a t-shirt
Yeah.
is $85 and you're like,
Yeah.
well, it seems to be the same as every other t-shirt. Um, but it's kind of interesting because whenever we built the store originally, we built it on a budget. Um, we didn't have a lot of cash to build out the store with to begin with, and so we sort of did this like raw steel and OSB theme, not quite industrial, but sort of industrial materials. And now that they've been open for almost 2 years now, they've survived the pandemic, which a lot of retail businesses didn't. We're kind of like updating for a little bit more like light and bright. So I'm replacing all the OSB with a lot of white oak. I think I haven't picked it up yet, but as long as my supplier has white oak, I'm going to replace it with that. And then just kind of lighten everything up, get rid of a lot of the raw steel and just paint things white.
Gotcha.
So it should be pretty fun doing that,
Yeah.
building out some modular clothing racks, kind of duplicating the things that worked and
Yeah.
getting rid of the things that just need an update.
Hey, and before we do all the crazy intros, because I mean, who in the world does not know who you are? But before we lose the subject, tell me more about investing. As somebody who started their career on YouTube and blew up, and now you and Ben are like the only people in our space that are like just entrepreneuring it to the next level. You guys are investing in businesses, and I didn't have enough time to ask Ben about this, and I know his time is small, but like, how does it work with your partnership here? Is it kind of like you brought some capital, he brought some capital, you said, let's do this thing, I'll help you any way I can, and then over time, what happens? He sells, you get a cut, or do you get a kickback every month? How does that look?
So this was my first time investing this clothing store. It's called 1032 Spaces. It's downtown in Oklahoma City. If anybody ever wants to check it out, very cool. A friend of mine that I went to music school with before starting YouTube, he sort of became one of my best friends. We both dropped out of the thing that we were going to school for kind of simultaneously. He was pursuing something else at the time, and I wanted to drop out to pursue YouTube. And over that time period, he came to me after the YouTube stuff had gotten successful. He's like, hey, man, I have all the money that I need secured for the store, but I need like 10 more grand down. So I was like, okay, cool. I'll float that to you. I just kind of loan sharked him. It was before me and Ben became as entrepreneurial and like Shark Tank as we are now. And so I just kind of loan sharked him. I gave him 10 and I think I got back like 14 and a half. It was cool. It was a good way for my money to sort of do something instead of sitting in my bank account and getting like 0.5%.
Yeah.
But actually I got an opportunity. We're going to be reinvesting and expanding that clothing store into shoes as well now. So the what do you call it, like the commercial unit that they're leasing, the unit next to them just emptied out. And so
Uh-huh.
we're going to keep the same real estate that they're dedicating to, shirts and jackets and all of this to what it is now, but we're just going to add like limited edition and like collectible shoe launches. So like when Travis Scott and Nike collaborates to do a shoe launch, no one in Oklahoma City even carries it. Not even Foot Locker, because they're not on their like specialty distributor lists.
Right.
But by dealing with all of these kind of like high-end boutique streetwear brands, when someone like North Face collaborates with a brand similar to someone like Brain Dead, even though that doesn't go out to all of their stores and all of their retail locations, it just goes to their specialty retailers. And so I think we're going to expand out into shoes and just keep bringing like cool fashion into Oklahoma City, because it's like a really square, pretty conservative town. And like I'm a conservative dude, but I still like cool stuff, you know? So it's just cool to be able to bring in a little bit more culture and stuff into the city. And I'm like a 1% role in that, but it's still cool to be included.
And how does it work? So you give them a loan with whatever percentage, and then there's like a timeline between now and like 5 years, you get your money back. Is that how these investments usually look out?
Yeah, exactly. And I think it depends on the term of the loan and like how aggressive the percentage is. Mine was exactly what you said. It's a 5-year term. And
nice.
Well, I looked over your contract. It looks solid. I sent it to my guy. He glanced over as well.
Got your second opinion. That's why I signed off on it. In reality, I signed off on it without knowing even all of the details, just because it was like, I'm just floating my homie some money, and he just feels the responsibility to turn it into a deal. But I'm getting 45% return on the money. I'm giving him credit, getting 45 back. So it's hard to beat,
So you got the bug now? Are you just like, where can I put my money now? Like, what can you do?
Yeah, I know. It's weird that we're talking today, because I actually just signed a deal with my parents. We bought an investment property out here back in Oklahoma City. I'm sure you're in this world. Sponsor money is surprisingly good. It's like the YouTube business is surprisingly lucrative, and it's really easy to spend money like on projects here and there. But what happens is like you get chunks of money that accumulate, and instead of just giving that to half of it to the government, it might as well put it into something so that you can write it off before you pay taxes. And so that's basically what I'm trying to do, and that's what we did before the end of the year. I was able to get I think I put 25 down, and then my parents are. It was actually a really, really cool arrangement. So I don't have great credit. It was just something that, I just went to public school, and they're like, hey, credit is a thing, but no one really walks you through it. My parents, I remember them mentioning a thing or two as I was growing up, like, hey, you should get a card, or you should get a loan, or do something. But, like any kid, you don't listen. And then this year I turned 25, and I went to buy my first house. And I've banked with the same bank. It's called Bank of Oklahoma my entire life. Like since I was like 15, I set up an account with them, and I went to them and I was like, hey guys, I'm so excited because this is the house I want to buy. And they're like, great, you could be approved for a loan in probably like a year and a half. And then I kind of, ask them why. And what they basically describe is like, you just don't have any credit. And this was something that I was just not aware of. I was lucky enough not to really be in too much debt outside of college loans, which I was able to pay off pretty quick because of YouTube. So that didn't really contribute to my score either. And so this past 2 years has been this like little cycle of doing the responsible things I should have done when I was young, so that I sort of like got credit to where I was able to do this. But it's kind of funny. It's like no one really ever teaches you that. And so with this house that I was able to invest with my parents, like I put all the money down, and then I partnered and co-signed on them with the loan. So I handled the upfront money, but I'm also getting a little bit of kickback in terms of like all of that's going to be reporting to my credit. And then we'll be to the races eventually when it's time to buy like a real house with a lot of.
It's a double-edged sword, because you're kind of kicking yourself going, man, I wish I got a credit card or two when I was younger, built up my credit. See, I was the opposite side of the spectrum where, like you, nobody ever gave me like good education about money management. In fact, savings, right? Like nobody ever really talked to me. Dude, before I got married, I couldn't keep my account from overdrafting. I just couldn't. This is before YouTube. I was still in college. I was still bartending and waiting. And the problem is, dude, this is, I mean, if we're going to talk about relationship problems, like I brought probably like $9,000 worth of credit cards into my marriage that were like between 8 cards. It was like 9 or 10 grand. And it's because I fell into that lie, like at a young age, going like, oh, you need to build credit. One day you're going to buy a house. One day you're going to, buy a car, and who's going to loan you this money? And so I kept buying all this stuff, stupid back in the day, the True Religion jeans and all this dumb stuff. And now I'm going to marriage with debt, and I'm like, dang, dude, like I should have done it the other way. And so it's funny how we've seen two different sides of the story where like you didn't ball out and do anything crazy and dumb, you know what I mean? But at the same time, you're like, I didn't have that credit. And with me, I tried to ball out and do crazy and dumb stuff. And cool, I got the house, but I also came with a shit ton of credit cards. You know what I mean?
Dude,
like,
it makes sense. But how did you grow up? So like my parents were like super broke when they had me and my brother. Just because they were young. Like my dad was in the Marines, my mom was 21 or 22, something like that, right? And so I grew up like not having anything, and so I've got like this deep frugal bone in my body. Like every time I spend money, I straight up hear my mom's voice being like, "You don't need that."
Yeah.
And so once I started making money, or even once I didn't have it, but once I became an adult, like I always had that like, don't spend it. Like once you have it, don't spend it. But
I wish
you're
I had
the
that.
opposite. But you're the opposite. I'm asking,
dude. I have so many. Okay, so I grew up as an immigrant, obviously, right? So when we moved to the States in 1996, same year Tupac Shakur died. Shout out to Tupac, right? We came with, I think my parents had like $1,000 cash, and then I think maybe like 6 bags that we came here with, right? And my dad worked in construction in a chop shop for the first 4 years, so he doubled back these paychecks, and then they got their first house. They put like 50% down because he saved every penny because we lived off of like potatoes. And then every car he ever owned was always, a rebuild salvage title that he fixed a car up. And I remember the only credit card my dad ever owned was to buy a hot tub. And somebody said, you need to build credit. So he bought a hot tub from Costco, and then he paid off that credit card in like 2 weeks, right? Just to say, like, he already had the money, but they're like, oh, I get it. But the problem is, and I don't know, like, because I saw them spending that money responsibly. I saw my dad being a penny pincher. But none of it transferred over to me. Like I don't think, and I don't want to put any weight on them because I have enough things to put weight on them. But I don't want to put the financial burden on them and be like, wow, you never taught me about it. But I legitimately, like, you hang out with your friends, and I grew up in Seattle amongst, not the best kind of people, but you see somebody walking around with nice clothing from, back then it was what, like not Urban Outfitters. What was it like?
Buckle, right?
Yeah, it was Buckle. Buckle was big. American Eagle was just dying off at that time. It was just that weird time. You wore some white Aldo shoes because you're an immigrant. I don't know. And so, like, you're buying this dumb things and you're not saving anything. And so you don't realize. I've never had that voice in my head like, you shouldn't have this. And the most interesting thing is, it wasn't until I got married. And when I got married, it's funny, I graduated college. So I got my degree, went to work for the hospital industry. And my wife and I got married. And her and we got pregnant with Jack, my oldest, but like we were living off of $1,200 between the three of us, working hospital money, And so you're like, well, we're still broke, and we'll put a thing or two on a credit card just to get by. But then that whole mindset of you don't need this didn't come in till the money started rolling in later. You know what I mean? Once I got into YouTube, the YouTube and the sponsorship money started coming in, and then at that point, once paying off the student loan and all the credit cards, then I'm like, I don't really need that. And so, like, the only thing I'll spend money now is more like today we went skiing. I was like, cool, let's go skiing. Let's go to a restaurant, like, not like let's go buy a fancy car. Like, all my cars are used, It's like, so
that's what happens when you're busy, though, right? Is like, okay, I have time for 1 or 2 hobbies, so I'm gonna get big into those and buy all the gear for, like, I know you like bow hunting. I like playing music and stuff like that. So everybody's got their gear thing that they go on. But aside from that, it's like, well, I don't have time to be wasting money on stuff. And it's like, I think that's a really cool lesson for young people is like, if you stay busy, you will waste so much less money.
100%. I don't think I've ever heard anybody say that, because the mindset I always had is there's a like a nursery rhyme or rhyming thing. It was like, busy hands keep the devil away or something like that.
Oh, yeah, like idle hands are the devil's like handy playground,
hand job,
something like that.
The devil's hand job or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it might as well be.
And but then like now it's so true that like if you're busy, you can't spend money. Like, and that's so frustrating, is like, as people like you and I who work for ourselves and manage our own schedule, you're like, I can go get a jet ski if I wanted to, but when am I gonna go ride that dumb jet ski?
And then it's gonna be so expensive to ride the jet ski, because every day I'm riding the jet ski, I'm like, well, I could have been building something, or I could have been making a video and like made money instead of spent it. But that's I think it's easy for anybody that's in a creative endeavor though. Like if you're doing something you enjoy, it's really easy to fall into that trap. So I also don't want to like act ungrateful for it either. Like it's really fucking lucky that like,
Oh yeah.
oh, I'm making my hobby into my career or whatever. So it's like that's a really
Yeah.
lucky situation to be in. Most people aren't quite that lucky.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we all share the same, what do they call it, imposter syndrome, where we're all like, why am I making this money? Like, I'm not good at what I do. I'm not creative like Ben or Mike or, or Jess. Like, what am I doing? And then you're amongst the same people at the same table and you go, what?
It's
You
that
know?
it's that crazy ratio though of people who are creating and people who are consuming in any world, right? So even if it's TV and media, the number of people that are interested in watching woodworking videos, well, we know is about at least 3 million people.
Yeah.
That's like the audience of like Jimmy DiResta and Bob Claggett. They're sort of like they're leading the charge currently, and so we know that there's 3 million people that are down to sit around and watch people build stuff. But there's probably like 300 like willing to make videos about it, right? So there's this insane discrepancy between the people consuming and creating. And so maybe that's why the imposter syndrome thing is so heavy is like you don't even have to be special to sort of like have an audience these days, as long as you're like in a niche that's big enough, right?
Yeah.
Like I think you've got a good personality. I think I have a good personality, but I don't think either of us would like walk into LA and then have agents just stopping us, being like, "Hey, you
Yeah.
got it." We're not like that person.
Yeah.
We're like,
hey, kid. Hey,
yeah,
kid.
exactly. You got
Let me
something
talk to you for a
special.
sec.
Yeah, like that's not happening to
You got
either of
chops,
us.
kid.
It's like people are happy to see that you're in shape when you take production meetings for TV stuff and all that, but
Yeah.
it's like neither of us are like, breaking down the casting doors. And so that's the crazy part. You don't even have to be that special when the ratio is that far off. Now over time, like as creating becomes more easy or at least more accessible, maybe that switches a little bit, but there's still like just like a real healthy mix of like being competent and willing to share everything and then actually having good ideas. Like I love your ideas. Like when you like last year you renovated that entire bathroom. And like my favorite thing in there was the vanity. I love the way you made those doors, the way you had that little spacing between all the slats in them. I just thought it was like the perfect touch of like taking DIY into the intermediate category, but still like super approachable. You know what I mean? Nothing you did was too complicated. But it's like even that took enough foresight to be like, well, I want to make something cool, but I don't want to make it with tools people can't use or whatever it is, and there's a lot of people that don't care about it. I think there's a lot of people that miss the mark. Maybe they don't think about it when they should be, in terms of like, who are the people watching and how do they relate to it? But either way, man, when the ratio of creating and consuming is that high, we're in the golden days.
One thing I'm kind of seeing in terms of these ratios of the people, like I started in this industry kind of like we all did. We're like, let me just show you how I did this, right? And then after a while, I realized how saturated with the industry is with monsters, people like you and Ben and all these other people, and then that are crushing the DIY space, right? And then I started realizing there is, through just no expertise of my own, but just pure dumb luck, of this audience of people who like, kind of like me, who have their own set of daddy issues, who like, had a dad, but maybe the dad never taught him how to build and wasn't emotionally attached or anything, didn't tell you he loved you. And so the branding of Curds and Sweat just kind of came after I ran like my first like half marathon. And so I started kind of implementing in part of my branding. And so the idea behind every build was like, listen, if a dummy like myself can tear down this wall and put something else on, so can you. And so I'm slowly seeing this audience being cultivated by like the people of just going like, somebody believed that I could do it and I'm doing it. And you're like, oh, you don't really care about like the idea of like fine woodworking or what a pocket hole jig is. You just want somebody to be like, I bet you can figure it out.
Right. I mean, some people want the process. Some people really only enjoy the process, and it shows because they'll make something that's technically really, really great but ugly. And like I don't just mean subjectively ugly. I just mean like kind of like things that are proportioned badly and like way distorted. That happens, and so I am definitely like, I just want to see it done. Like the cool part is like seeing the idea in my head and then seeing it in real life. Like those are the two moments that are the coolest, I think. And probably similar with you too. And so, yeah, there's going to be enough people that connect with whatever you do that's unique for sure. Trying to think more on like, you were saying something that was really hitting home just a minute ago, but I lost it. But I guess
Yeah, no worries. Hey, let me ask you this: do you ever? And I'm willing to put money you have this, but are you one? There's two types of people I realized in the maker world or the DIY world, where like there's the person who's like, here is the level of confidence that I have, and I'll show you how to do this. And then there's the other spectrum of the people where you're like, I bet I could figure it out, right? Like no project's too big. Like you believe in yourself more than you almost should, right? You know, do you have that?
Oh, absolutely.
That's me all day.
And the fact that you said that, it reminds me of what I was trying to bring up in the last statement. It's a question to you though. When was the moment when you realized they were like, oh, when I mess up and show it, people appreciate it. They actually like that more than whenever I like just gloss over it or pretend like nothing went wrong. Like people appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah. I had it was this transition piece from okay, and here's the hard part. Like again, going back to like there's people who kind of establish dominance in a particular genre of videos where it's the DIY. Like I said, you, Ben, like all these people, Brad, right? And now new people like myself, we are lost in, unless we create something out of this world, which we don't have these kind of ideas, we're lost at the very bottom of the list, right? Of the videos that are popping off. And then like Maleki and I were talking about it, like there's no way that we can come into that space because you guys are already killing it in that space. So we have to find a different approach. And I remember at that specific moment, I was like, okay, so do I go from voiceover videos and have more personality on camera? And I started experimenting with it.
I see.
And then and I had too many jerk trolls that would be like, hey, bro, less talking, more doing, right? Stop moving your hands so much. And I kind of started ignoring that a little bit and kind of staying in my lane and be like, no, I think there's something here. And then it clicked. I started this pattern of showing my frustration and mess ups and then showing the camera and then seeing the feedback of the audience going, hey, I really like that you're not sprucing it up. You're actually showcasing like the potential things that go wrong. And then from that, I think it started evolving something different out of it. And I think that's where it came from.
Right. And it's funny because I feel like a lot of those negative comments would have been something like, hey, enough with the Peter McKinnon.
Yeah. Oh, and I got those too, right?
Of course. But it's like, well, the first few times you're going to do that, of course, it's going to be like a little cheesy and you're going to know exactly like the inspiration I was pulling from in terms of like one to bring you in. But it's like, but now it's your style. Like whenever I watch your videos, I know you're not really going to voice over everything. Like you're going to be like, the camera is going to go from the tripod to talking to your face to running into the room to back out. Like I know what your video is going to entail now. And it's just your style. Like no one's looking at that and being like, well, his first inspiration was this. And then you can clearly tell that it bled into this. But everyone does it. I remember whenever I started, I had the benefit probably of starting like 2.5 years before you, right? Something like that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Probably.
I think when I started, you were, okay, so when I started in the game, you were at a shop. Yeah, like a white shop.
Okay,
and you whatever. By the way, we should get into that a little bit later of your body transformation. But you were a little bit on the, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, you know what I mean? A lot of love. And hey, don't get me wrong. I got some images of me, right? But like, so I mean, like, so you were in that time, and I still remember you were experimenting with Instagram live videos. So I don't know how far along that was. So was that what 5-6 years ago?
No, it wasn't like 5-6 years ago, but probably 3. I bet I started 3 years before you.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
But in that same way, Bob Claggett, Jimmy DiResta, and Ben Ueda, I would say those 3 were the people that were kind of doing it whenever I started. They started about 2 years before me. So I wasn't in the same boat as you, but I remember looking at people doing what I wanted to do and dissecting what was good about what they were doing and also what I thought was bad about what they were doing. And I just boiled down to like, if I was a YouTube channel where I was 50% I like to make stuff and 50% homemade modern, I think I would be right where I want to be and where a big potential audience would be. Because I remember Bob was the first person, like in the maker place to be on camera, even like to just set up a tripod and be like, hey, I'm Bob. I like to make stuff, and today we're gonna make a sword, whatever he's gonna make that day. You know, it's gonna be the most random thing. He was the first person to just think like, oh, I should set up the tripod and just show the thing before I make it. Everybody else, you started the video and it just started building. I remember seeing that and I was like, okay, that was great. But I also, on the other hand, Ben, his thing was he just had like a photo, like the same photo you would put on Instagram was like the first 5 seconds of his video. And so just looking at the intro, I was like, okay, I love how Bob's on camera. That's really smart. I want it to be a little bit shorter though, because I like how quick Ben gets to his project. But also, there's no reason it should be a picture. It should be a video. And so, you know, from there, I really liked the way Bob would inject talking to the camera and making sure people understood what was happening in the in-between moments. But then I just appreciated the fact that Ben literally just like set the camera on the tripod and had it like he had it in time-lapse mode in the camera. He wasn't up in post, you know? And so I loved how simple his was. I was like, okay, I'm just going to marry these two worlds and put in whatever I put into it. And that's what I hope to accomplish. And I have to imagine you were in a similar boat. But the weird part too is like being the middle child. Because I remember when you made videos that were popping off and really got my attention. I remember when Ben Pake, Wobie Design, started popping off and making videos that like really grabbed my attention. And every time someone new comes to the scene, there's like always something to gain. From Ben, I remember his montages. Like he was somebody that really incorporated music and did montages. Like he did them well, but he also did them generously. Whereas like in a video, I might have literally like 8 seconds where I'm not talking and there's just like a cool shot. Whereas Ben Pake would have like a 2-minute or a minute long little segment where it's just a montage.
Yeah.
And in my head, I always thought that was something people would tune out on. I always thought people would tune out. As soon as I quit giving instructions for more than like 15 seconds, I assumed people would drop. And so I never tried it. But after what really happens is like someone new comes to the scene, brings something to the table, and it's like, well, keep up or get left behind is what my mentality is. And I'm somebody that's like, I want to be on YouTube in 10 years. I don't want to be like anywhere else. You know, as long as YouTube is here, I want to be on YouTube in 10 years.
Yeah.
Even if Instagram is still Instagram and Facebook is Facebook. I don't care what one is making how much money. Like I started because I wanted to be a YouTuber. It wasn't because I wanted to do anything else. And so that's the idea is like when someone like Ben comes along, great. When someone like you comes along and are like, okay, Mike, we both came to the same conclusion of like these renovation videos do really well. Yeah. But it's like, okay, well, as long as me and Alex are doing them, I better fucking do them. Otherwise, he's going to do them all. Or the idea of like the way you push yourself to talk to camera a ton. It's something that I work to get better at. And it's something that is fun to do, but it's also just challenging. But when you're here doing it, it's like, okay, great. If I'm not doing it, Alex is doing it. If I'm not doing it, Ben is doing it. You know, I basically tell myself that. And so right now, you're like transitioning into like the middle child generation where it's like there's people coming up on you now. So I'm really curious what that's going to be, like what people are going to be bringing to the table where I don't know if it's something that you're thinking about doing, but maybe you haven't taken the leap, or just something that both of us are completely overlooking. But the genre moves fast, man.
Yeah. You know, so two things. And before I get into to responding to that question or that statement, one of the things I absolutely loved, once Ben kind of opened up this whole Maker Ranch idea and he invited like myself and all these, and I don't even like, I have the biggest imposter syndrome when we came to that Maker Ranch where I'm like, I'm the smallest guy here. In fact, I think Ben Peck, him and I were just talking about it, kind of like, what are we doing here? But it was the coolest thing where like, I think when I came there, you've already passed 1 million subscribers on YouTube. And I'm like, here I am with these absolute killers on YouTube, and they're allowing me to have a seat at the table and either have me play out my ideas or have me share my frustrations. And you guys would all, including Ben, like would walk us through like the process. And what I love the most is like, one of the things that came very evident was, yeah, you would share some things like what works, how important thumbnails are and lighting and blah, blah, blah. But then like the fact that like there's really no secret that we all have that we're not sharing with somebody. You know what I mean? And I think that's a thing that a lot of people who get onto YouTube, and you could testament how many emails you'll get about people going, hey, I'm thinking about getting a YouTube. What are the mistakes some of you've learned? And I've kind of started creating this ongoing spreadsheet list of just like a copy and paste thing. Be like, hey, man, here's 20 things that I've learned. That way I don't have to write a brand new paragraph every time. But like with you guys, it's like, no, it's just show up to work every day, try things, be ridiculous about it, and then figure out what works, what doesn't. But I think a lot of people, they'll do 5 videos, they fail, and then they give up, you know?
Dude, and that's the thing too, is whenever we were starting, there wasn't even a genre. We were like creating the genre, not to sound like early to the game or anything. Because like I said, there was people before me, but when we were jumping on, it was like when you Googled modern coffee table, there was one page of results, you know, like on YouTube, it would be like the first 3 results would be something worth watching. And everything else was just like, well, you know, when you see a thumbnail and you're like, okay, there's some guy, Dave, in his garage. And he's not like, he's not here to teach. He's like showing off his like, I don't know, new truck lift. He gets sidetracked and be like, yo, what's up? I just got this new thing.
We just learned Dave's racist.
Yeah, exactly. But anyways, and so, yeah, it was like the genre wasn't there, which kind of made it easy, though, because if it's like all I had to do really was like make a coffee table that was not ugly. Because as long as it wasn't ugly, it sort of like passed the test. But nowadays, like I can't make a coffee table without a gimmick. It's got to have built-in chargers, or it needs to be made of a cool material, you know, like but there's like, I'm sure there are opportunities. This could be something that I'm just telling myself. But in my head, like the opportunity for like just going out into the garage and working for like 2 days on a plywood bookcase, those days are limited if they're not over already.
Yeah. So going back to that statement that we left off about, you know, constantly moving, seeing one person move in one direction and seeing what the other person's doing and kind of saying, keep moving or stay behind, right? One point that Malek and I have been kind of throwing back and forth is more of along the lines like, okay, so if we can't make it there into the DIY space because there's people way better than us already in it, what can we do already, right? Like, so we're obnoxious, so like we could put a little bit more of the personality. I started experimenting with that, and I tried to give a little bit, like a few more extra segments of me talking to the camera. And then I think as of 4 videos ago, I hired a full-time videographer with me, which is funny because the quality only goes up, right? So if you now have somebody who edited for you, but now they're also running the camera, theoretically the product in terms of presentation only goes up because you have showmanship and camera work and all this stuff. But yeah, you'll still get these trolls going, I loved it the old way. I love the tripod. Oh, moving too much makes me dizzy. And you go, like, you'll make everybody unhappy, whether the music is bad or whatever. But I guess I remember, so all these pieces to the story, I remember when I first met Ben Ueda at Haven, what was it, like 4 years ago? And I remember him throwing around this idea of how potentially we might have a space on like Netflix for longer form content, right?
Yeah.
And I remember when he said that, I followed Schultz probably the same time he followed Schultz, but I didn't know Ben at that time. But I remember Schultz talking about how Netflix is kind of dying off and blah, 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 because all these other free streamings, whatever. Obviously, everything changed based off of he's the only guy that just sold a special during an epidemic. But yeah, I kind of kept thinking about that. I go, what if we can all, in our makerspace, create... Because maybe 10 years ago, the person with the best ideas win. But what if now the person that gets enough of camera rapport with the audience is the person they want to come back and watch again? Like, so... Like we all, I mean, I can only imagine your inbox, but like the amount of producers that are trying to DM us saying, hey, you ever thought of doing a show? And you kind of go, well, technically I'm making my own show. And if I'm making my own show, then what if you just keep pushing it? I talk a little bit more. Now somebody else holds it. Then we'll talk about, you know what I mean? Like basically at the end of the day is why not scale it to the degree where people tune in to watch Modern Builds or watch Mr. Build It or watch just because we are that person and nobody else could be that person. That's where my idea came from.
It's an interesting challenge to figure out, though, because this is something that I've been thinking on also a little bit. It's kind of like that time of the year, you know, everyone's sort of like reflecting, thinking about what they're going to be doing next year, and it's weird. So YouTube is the same thing content has always been. Radio was radio until TV came out. TV was TV until cable came out, and cable was cable until YouTube came out. The only difference is, I think, I wasn't alive during this time, but during all of these other transitions, the machine was the one doing it still. It was still like, it was like Fox making FX and then making FXX. So the machine during this TV to cable transition still had control, or it was still directing everything. And so they didn't have to start from zero and figure everything out. The weird part about YouTube and the internet is they were just like, here's a thing, figure out how you would even use it to begin with, and then run with it, right? Like even podcasts had the benefit of, I guess, like radio and then satellite radio, you know? Like everybody had Howard Stern, I guess, to kind of draw from. So what it had me sort of thinking is like, okay, if we had the machine, if the machine was behind us, what would they all be telling us to do? And well, I think what the machine said when it comes to TV and cable was, you need to be every day in front of these people, whether it's like Ellen or Rachel Ray. It's not about giving an hour of the most compelling content. It's about giving an hour of good content that is reliable. But it sucks because you never want to compromise on ideas, you know? Like, you never want to compromise and be like, okay, great. So what you're telling me is go build a bunch of medium good projects and you'll have security. I don't know what the answer is, but it's always more compelling to say, like, I would rather risk it on like 4 big ideas this year than just like, you know, phone it in every day. But I don't know, man. I would like to hear your responses too, because this is actively kind of thinking out loud at this point. But it's just like, what would the machine, like, what would all these TV producers just be yelling in your ear?
Well, I think that the TV producers, and keep in mind, I'm only saying this not from any of my expertise, because the people that I study are people like Ben, but I also study the people, like, I consume a lot of these comedians as podcasts, right? So these comedians, because they're another perfect, like, I guess science project to kind of experiment from, because in a way they work on this 30-minute or 1-hour comedy special, and it takes them a year to get that. And they work it out in all these comedy rooms, right? And so finally they put it out, and whether they produce it by themselves like Schultz, or they have Amazon or Netflix pick it up. And then, so now they've cultivated an audience, and I realized, okay, so the audience loves them not only for their joke, but because they've also realized that they connected with that person, right? So there's some kind of emotional attachment, right? They know how they act, they know their little inside jokes, whatever, right? I had Andrew Santino, I don't know if you follow him, but like, he was in town, and he had this whole joke going back with Chris D'Elia, right? Calling him Chip DiStefano or Chip D'Elia, you know, and I came up to him after the show, I was like, hey man, F him, you know what I mean? Like, and he kind of got it because I had the inside joke. So I became a fanboy of him because I was consuming his content. And then I saw they all make this transition, and obviously after Rogan paved the way, to have a podcast. Then you're consuming even more content, meaning more eyes on it. And so in my theory, I think what I would kind of reverse engineer it is like, I guess the machine is exactly what you're saying it to be. Is the machine is, how do you stay in front of people's faces? But maybe the answer is in different formats. Like, you can have a shorter format where, like, you, I guess the prime example is you create a YouTube video, right? That's like the long format. A little bit shorter format is now it's condensed into a smaller 3-minute thing posted on Facebook, and you know, you're doing it. And then you have a small section that's on Patreon. Those are your super fans. And I just think we just have to all just keep moving. Like, I think it's almost becoming archaic for somebody. It's like blogging, right? Somebody started in the industry and all they did was blogging. Well, then YouTube went heavy, paint on the wall, that you had to be doing YouTube. And so now not too many people are consuming blogs. And now I feel like in the next maybe 5 to 10 years, we're going to see a shift where it's either going to explode and go to like streaming services, the content that we're creating, or it's just going to be just double down on the amount of FaceTime, like vloggers. Like, vloggers have to be on camera. Like, I'm a big fan of Lunkers TV. I don't know if you follow him, but he he even said this on Black Rifle Coffee's podcast, that he's like, if I don't turn on my camera and record every single day, I actually see a decline in my audience, which is the weirdest thing in the world, right? Because you're like, wait, like the guy skips a day and you lost, a couple of hundred followers. It makes no sense.
Yeah. Okay, so here we go. Now it got me thinking. Okay, so if Rachel Ray, the machine was behind Rachel Ray. They said, you got to cook every day. And then she said, I can't cook every day. You know how much time it takes to prep and clean? And also it takes 4 hours to put a turkey in the oven. And so the machine said, great, you don't do anything but the talking and assembling.
Okay.
That's probably taking it too far because I like cutting wood and all of that sort of stuff.
Okay.
Have you thought about having like a shop hand so that you don't have to sand for an entire day every once?
Yeah.
Maybe that is the machine. Maybe the machine is just a dude to run the machine.
Well, like, I one of the things always stands in the back of my mind. In fact, this is what my deciding factor was to hire a full-time video guy, because the stress of constantly doing everything. I remember Ben saying, in our industry, we have to focus on efficiency. Like, we have to be very efficient because the end product is the video. And the more efficient you are to putting that video out, the better you'll do, essentially. And I think I was kind of the front where I was like, okay, so I either hire a person, like Fixer Upper, where they'll come in and Chip swings a hammer 2 times, and then it'll be a time lapse of a guy with a hoodie just going to town on it. Or I hire somebody to take away a camera work. So I got to get somebody to do something, right? Because I'm not going to edit and camera work. And so I realized my efficiency definitely did go up, because now I'm realizing, wow, that took a lot faster to build. Now, keep in mind, I'm only been 4 videos in with this guy, but my mental health for longevity went 300-fold, because I now have a 10 till 3 shooting time. 6 to 10 or 6 to 9, it's computer work. 9 to 10, it's working out, and then 10 till 3, we're shooting. And my guy has got to the point where he's a fly on the wall. Like, he has never told me, hey, let's redo a shot or anything. I'm just building on my pace, which I now love, because it's my first love was building, right? Not content producing. And so the machine, I guess it's telling me, how do I put out more? I've realized I can now squeeze out, instead of 2 projects a month, I could squeeze in a 3rd project a month.
Yeah. Okay. So it's funny. We're experimenting on opposite sides of the same coin. So over the past 2 months, Brett McAfee, who originally worked for Jimmy DiResta, he's an awesome dude. He's a blacksmith. He's a super competent maker. He's good at a lot of things. But he moved from upstate New York out to the West Coast. And so I've been hiring him a few days every week. But he's not touching the camera. He's like, if I have to do one process 6 times, I'll do it twice on camera, and then he'll like finish the rest off camera if it needs to be. Or we've been working on a big project, turning an old shed on my property into the new workshop for the next little while. And so there's just been a lot of like heavy lifting, hold this while another guy screws it type work. Dude, building, I don't know if this is true, but it's a statement I'll make. I think having 2 people is faster than me with twice as much time.
Correct. 100% agreed.
Yeah.
It also free.
Cool.
It also
'Cause it
free.
feels
I realized with me also this. It's whenever somebody takes over a certain job, right, where you have to move the camera, in 5 different angles to get a couple of cool montages going. By you focusing on nothing but building, what ends up going, you realize you cut your project down by an extra 4 or 5 days. And now, like, I caught myself talking to my videographer. I go, hey, Kyle, man, what if we shot like a cool new trailer with like promoting the whole like Courage and Sweat, and we bought that time. And so we did this whole thing. We did some of these dramatic shots in the garage. We went to the foothills. I was running with my merch up a mountain where he's got a drone flying. So what ended up happening is, like, you release a part of your brain that disposes creativity again, right?
That's what, sick. Yeah.
We just did a project where I was like, hey man, what if we built because I was like, okay, I need to fill some of these sponsor slots that are supposed to be left for the end of the year. And I was like, I need them to be faster, because the amount of spots we need to fill. I was like, okay, so let's do a beginner build project series. Well, we'll do like a bed, a table, a coffee table, whatever. Stuff that I know that my channel does not get views on because it gets hidden way below. And so I was like, but here's what we can do. What if we found like this single mom who works hard and we build this thing and then we surprise her with it at the house, whatever. And we do this whole like reality TV show thing. Now, if I had that idea before Kyle started working with me, I would have had probably a panic attack going like, no, that's way too much work. I got to put one camera and then vocal here and then that there. And how does that going to work? But when somebody takes over one job, you're like, hey, what if we do this? What if we went to the children's hospital and we built a bunch of doll houses? I bet you if I built a dollhouse right now, it's not going to get me views. But if I build a dollhouse and we did this whole thing is like we surprised a hospital with 10 kids with a dollhouse, that'd be fucking baller, right? Like, so like that's, yeah.
I remember, well, this year Workbench Con was canceled, but the year prior, that was like Bob Claggett. That was his whole talk was like, don't be afraid to hire somebody. And worst case scenario, it doesn't work out and you just quit working together after a week or two.
Yeah.
You don't have to sign on to like making sure someone stays alive for the next 5 years. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, you don't have to commit like full time to somebody. And that was something that helped me a ton. But it's cool hearing that. It's cool hearing having somebody there to film is worthwhile. Because my initial like suspicion was like, okay, first thing I want to do is get somebody to help with building, because that's sort of the bottleneck. There's two bottlenecks. I want to build faster and I want to edit faster. And so
you still edit your stuff?
Everything, yeah.
Really?
But I've been hanging out with Rachel Metz a little bit lately.
Yeah.
And she just hired an editor too. Yeah. And videos are good. The video, like, I can tell. I knew somebody started editing your stuff just because I listened to the episode you did with Ben and you had mentioned it. And so watching your content with that in mind, I can kind of see it a little bit here and there just because there's things that are like, but over 3 months that'll disappear, right? It's just only because it's fresh. It's the same thing as the Peter McKinnon thing earlier. You know what I mean? It's like once you bring it in, people notice it, then it disappears. All that to say though is like watching her content, watching your content with somebody else shooting it and editing it. I don't know, man. It's just really cool because I always thought that there's like a secret sauce that the YouTube creator is putting on there. But our whole conversation at this point has been like none of us are really that special. So why would I even think that? You know?
So are you kind of felt like it was like a farm to table where like the person created it, he edited a certain way, and then he put the product out for you to kind of consume the way it was intended to be consumed.
It's the Casey Neistat motto, right?
Yeah. I remember starting in this, and one of our friends, him and his wife are really established wedding photographers in Seattle. And I remember 5 years ago, he's telling me, hey, you got to get on YouTube. And I go, no, dude. I love the woodworking. I'm learning how to woodwork or carpentry work, whatever you want to call it. I want to focus on learning that skill set. And I don't want to learn how to use a camera, and editing and settings. And I had to do that just in order to be in the industry. You know what I mean? And once I finally did that for a while and I still saw how much work it took, there's no way I could put out more videos. And when the decision finally came to editing, that was like a slice I was taken off of me. But I remember specifically my daughter, so she's 6 months, but I think 2 months ago, I remember, like, when the kids wake up in the middle of the night on a regular feeding, your body naturally wakes up, and then you feed them, and then you go back to bed, and sometimes you just can't fall asleep because you're kind of, now you have ideas going through your head. And I remember going, man, I'm stressed out. I can't get all these projects in, and it's taking so long. Now it's not even fun building because I'm stressed out. I'm supposed to be my own boss, but I can't make my kids' events. I don't have time to go skiing. I don't have time to go do. What's the point then, right? Like, if you have money, if you have money but no freedom, what's the point?
Right? Yeah.
What's the point? And so it got to the point where like I couldn't fall back asleep because I was like, maybe I need to hire a guy to run and gun the camera full time. And my fear was always this: how good are you at doing math in your head? If I was to give you like 3 odd numbers, can you do them?
I took calculus.
Okay. So for me, you give me a very simple equation. Like right now, I'm in front of you. You say, what's 7 plus 9? I don't know.
Oh shit! It's kind of like dyslexia with numbers.
Yeah, I can't see them in my head. Now, if you give me if even numbers, if you say 6 and 10, I'd be like, oh yeah, yeah, or 6 and 12, cool, no problem. I just
Odd
but
numbers.
odd numbers are the things that throw me off. But then even more so if you're in front of me. In fact, like so that stuff is weird. And I remember
That's
I was
cool.
telling Kyle, my God, well, it sucks,
Well,
but
it's
I
weird.
get
It's like I've never even heard
yeah,
of that before. That's
yeah.
nice.
It's kind of like stage frights, right? Like it's kind of like stage fright. And I remember contemplating this idea of having a guy come in, and I remember if I hire a guy to come in and he's watching me, I can't think straight. Like I can't do my calculation of okay, I'm making a drawer box and it has to be 1/2 inch for one side for the drawer slides and a 1/2 inch for the other side for drawer slide. Make it smaller, then you have it to do even smaller for the front and back side. It just was too many variables, and I felt like I'm performing like a spelling bee competition, right? And it gave me anxiety. So people give me anxiety sometimes. And so what was cool is he edited for me for like 6 months before he started being my camera guy. So there was a level of trust that was developed. And I even told him this. I was like, after the second day that he started recording with me, it almost felt like he was a fly on the wall. Like I never felt like there's a camera guy. He's just walking around, got a panning shot, pan shot, close up, his cool, whatever he's doing. And all I had to focus is on, like, I almost got tunnel vision of I'm just going to build. I'm going to do what I love the most. And it's been the greatest penny. And the cool thing about it is you have a hard stop because he leaves at 3. I can't do anything after 3. So it's a really helpful thing.
I think that's really cool. Yeah, because I don't have like social anxiety. I don't say that at all. I think that's overstating it. But I'm very happy being by myself. That's how I got into doing what I'm doing. That's how I got into building things in the first place. That's how I got into making YouTube videos beyond that. Is like I'm cool spending a few days by myself and keeping myself busy. And I had that same fear about hiring somebody. Earlier you mentioned like whenever you became aware of me, I was working in that one shop, kind of like just white walls. That was a metal barn in my buddy's place. The first time I moved out of my house, it was with a friend of mine, and the reason I moved in with him was because he had the metal barn that we threw all of our house parties in growing up. He was like a few years older than I was, so like right when I hit like prime drinking age, like they were already in it. You know what I'm trying to say? And it was great. It was like of the like 3 or 4 years that like we were doing that quite a bit. Boom, it was the spot. But as we got older and like started winding down a little bit, I was like, hey, you need a roommate. I need somewhere to build. I'm very ready to get out of my parents' place. And I had saved up enough money to kind of do it at that point. So I took over his barn, and that's where I was building at the time. But we were talking about something else that made me bring up that shop. Why did I bring up that shop? Oh, we were just talking about hiring somebody. And I had hired a friend of mine, Caleb, the same person that opened the clothing store. Okay. In this time period where he was getting his business plan figured out to try and get all of the money secured to be able to open that store, I was hiring him 2 or 3 days a week. It was kind of funny. Like at the time I had made like 100-something videos, and it was right when YouTube had come out with this like series editor where they were trying to be a little bit more like TV. So they basically like made playlists more beefy so that they would have a little bit more weight. So I started like Modern Build Season 2. I got a second camera guy, production values going up, like, let's do this. And we filmed a few videos, and it was great. Over time, the clothing store thing worked out for Caleb, so we quit working together. It wasn't anything, like, it didn't work out. But what I learned from that is it was great because it was, like, literally my best friend. So we had all this shit to talk about. There was, like, we like the same music. We enjoy the same movies. We're into the same stuff. That's why we're friends to begin with. So we have so much in common. It's like we just talk all day or be quiet, and it doesn't matter because we're already friends. I was really nervous about bringing somebody in and having to entertain them for an entire day. That was the part that was like almost more scary than like having somebody there and having to pay them and all of this stuff, because I personally think I should have hired someone a long time ago. So the money part of it isn't really so scary. It would have been scary if I started sooner. But the thing that was like hanging me up was like, I might really, really hate working with somebody. Like I might just like not enjoy it. But I've had Brett out for a little while, and it's been really cool. You mentioned your filmer sort of being a fly on the wall.
Yeah.
Brett's not like a fly on the wall. We definitely have plenty to talk about when we talk about it. But what's really cool about him is he's like a little bit better at like construction building than I am. That's
Uh-huh.
not like what I know a ton of. So I've been having him just like, well, what I'll do is I'll basically explain as far as I've thought into a process. So, for instance, on
Yeah.
this shed that we're turning into the shop, one of the doors was like about to fall off, and the whole front wall was ready to go, like in the next year or two if nobody did anything. And so, like,
Yeah.
I showed him, I'm like, obviously, this is a problem. We got these studs trying to tear away from the 4x4 posts in the corners. We got to cinch everything up. And then also, once the walls are in, we've got to fit the doors. I explained to him, like, briefly how far I've thought about it, but I also haven't even figured it out for myself if I were to do it. You know, it's one of those things, it's like I'll figure it out as I go.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But it was like a test. I just told him that and I walked away. I was working on some I was working on a patio project. And so I was keeping myself busy, not even paying attention. And then 2 hours later, he comes back and it's done. And I was like, oh, shit. This is faster than I would have done it. And you didn't even ask me the questions.
Right.
And that was the part that was so relieving. I thought it was just going to be endless questions all day. I thought someone was going
Yeah.
to be like, how much do you want me to sand this? How long is it? And all of these things. But with Brett in particular, shout out to Brett if he ever listens to this.
Yeah.
He's not that way. And it's great. And I don't know if that was something that was like a little scary with you, you know, having somebody like in the shop to film.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
it's made me way more confident. Like if ever I get the opportunity to have like some production money behind something and do like a big project,
Yeah.
hiring a filmer or hiring an editor would be like the first thing I do now rather than way down the list. So it's cool. It's on the list for the new year. Like, what about you? What are some things on the new year list?
Well, that was funny. I was gonna ask you. I was like, what's 2021?
Perfect segue. So yeah, so like the segue is like our conversation, it led up to it perfectly. It's like this conversation has been a light bulb moment for me, but like our peers hiring these people.
Yeah. You know, listen,
I need to do it. If they're doing it, I got to do it.
well, listen, but I mean, do you ever feel like do you stress out? I mean, that's my because you're always smiling. Do you stress out?
I'm super stressed.
But you're not losing your hair, dude. Your hair is like a full head of like a mane, dude.
For now, man. For now, we'll see. I don't think it's gonna last forever.
Are you single? Are you
I'm
single
already
or are you
taking
single?
keeps. I'm single.
You're single. Okay, so are you? What's the future look like for you? Are you envisioning a family and a lady, or are you or fella? I don't know.
Yeah, definitely not a fella.
Okay.
Dude, it's weird. Whenever I was 18, 19, I literally had this like plan. You know what I mean? Like how people. I'm like, I'm gonna be 25, find the girl, probably knock her up in the next 18 months, and get married in that same time period. You know what I'm trying to say? To be like perfect. Well, now I am 25, and so this is this would have been the year, and I dated a girl this year, and it went really well. I dated her longer than I'd ever dated anyone else. Learned a lot about what it took to sort of like make two lives commingle to the level that it was. Yeah. And like compromise and just eat shit on things where you really don't think you should be eating shit, but it's like it's okay because I'm trying to keep the waters calm here. You know, all the relationship that I really had been avoiding for a lot of my life, I kind of got into this year and realized not quite yet. So maybe 29, maybe 29, maybe 30, pop a kid or two out. I want two kids. I know I would I would love to have two sons. Like if I had two sons, bro, put a fork in me. I'm good.
Dude, one of the best advice I'll give you from somebody on
how to have sons?
How to have sons. Yeah. Well, you got to do doggy style. It's like first and foremost. Like it's science, really. Like, I mean, it's going lateral, right? That's the whole idea. They're shooting laterally, you know. So, no, dude, the best. I remember, and we won't get into too much of a relationship advice, but like I remember, I dated a girl, and maybe I was like 19 at the time, and my dad's like we fought so much because, like you said, you eat shit on one thing and you don't on the other. And I remember my dad going like, you guys are dating and you guys are fighting so much. Like, what's going to happen the rest of your life kind of thing. And then long story short, I didn't date anybody for a while. And then that's where I met Irina. We've been married for almost 9 years. I can count probably on 3 fingers how many times we fought, right? And there weren't fighting. It's more of like, one of them was me telling her she needs to start something big because she's way too talented. You know what I mean? And then the other 2 things were something dumb. But what I'm saying is with it is like, we were actually talking about this in the car a couple of days ago, about our sons. And I was like, Because one boy like is like, you could see he wants to like be a scientist and a rocket scientist and put pizza on the moon kind of thing, right? I already know he's not gonna go to college, and that's okay, right? Because I didn't have the smarts myself. But then my other son, my oldest boy, he like never feels challenged in school, but he like destroys it on Fortnite. Like he's like, his goal is to be like a gamer, right? And I remember my wife and I talking about like I didn't have a great upbringing with my dad and stuff like that. And she's like, how are you doing this with them? And so I realized them as like the if you want to make somebody thirsty for hard work, have them marry somebody in life who makes them want to impress them constantly. Like I guarantee you, if my boys married, like they have all these dreams and they're young and whatever, I bet you if they married somebody who is just dramatic and they're constantly having to eat shit on one stuff and whatever, then their brain is going to be consumed with that drama, and it's going to destroy that creativity or the ability or desire to reach for the moon. They're going to be like, if Irene and I got divorced right now, like I bet you I'd be constantly looking at my phone of like, you know, like bitterness back and forth, and my productivity, my efficiency, my creativity, it's all going to be going down the drain. You know what I mean? So you got to meet somebody who like makes you excited about like wanting to tell them like, yo, you watch what I did. You know what I mean? Like that's,
dude, I'm hoping that happens. Yeah. So the relationship that I was in, man, I'm sure if you looked at my video output, you could see like the 2 months where it was like, hey, they broke up in that window. Cause it was like, I was putting out, it was like months of scraping to get that second video out instead of like scraping and maybe getting a third.
Yeah.
And that sucks because I know anybody that's in this, like as deep as we are, when you're single, like until you marry somebody, whatever you're on is the thing that's number one in life. Like it's never the relationship until it is. And so, dude, it was just a bad feeling having guilt going both directions. Like, I'm feeling guilty because I'm not being as attentive of a boyfriend as I need to be, or as this girl wants me to be, or that I want to be for her. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, I want to be a good friend. Or I'm sorry, I want to be a good boyfriend. I don't want to come home and be like, oh, okay, you're back an hour and a half later than you thought you would be. I'm like, I know. Well, I come back when the sun goes down, basically. And, you know, I didn't want to feel bad in that direction, but to alleviate that guilt, now I need to start feeling guilty because I'm taking time away from the business that I've been dedicated to for much longer. And so over time, man, I hope what you're describing happens. I just meet a chick where it's like, I don't know what it is. I can't like get her out of my head, and just like kind of forces you to want to be really cool to impress her. Basically, is that like the idea? You just want to be cool to impress her.
Yeah, I think that's a kicker because when you truly, because I get your personality. You're the personality that's very easygoing, and so I think with that it's like if your communication language is humor and you meet somebody who's humor, and then they see where you came from and where you are now, and they're impressed by it, you want nothing but to constantly impress them. You know what I mean? Not that you're trying to create the sugar mama, but like Irene always tells me this. She's like honestly, she's like my biggest fan, and nothing makes me work harder than that. When she's like I was like, hey, you saw the last YouTube check that was deposited? You know what I mean? And and that's me because I know we used to make $1,200 a month between me and a kid. You know,
so that's how you get like real power couple dynamics.
Yeah. But you know, it also evolved into a thing because I'm not saying go meet somebody who wants to be like, oh wow, Mike, is that really? Oh, you know what I mean? Like, but you also want to meet somebody who's like in the trenches with you, where like they're working on their hustle, right? So like there's days where like I'll put in all my work, and then she's working late, so I'm making dinner for the boys and going to all their jiu-jitsu classes, and then she comes home, and instead of me being bitter, I go, good on you, because I know what that feels like. We're both in the trenches, and we'll both kind of cheer each other a drink, be like, you know, work hard. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so because you're also not like fake lifting each other up either. Because it's like that thing where if you're both doing dope things, then you can also be free with your criticisms, or not criticisms, but you are free to be like, oh, this isn't the most cool thing in the world.
Okay. Yeah.
If you know that your partner is capable of really cool things, and your partner knows that you likewise are really capable, then when things are like 50% there, like the person can know it and call you out on it, and you can respect it because you know that they're also putting in that same kind of effort.
100%.
It's not like, it's not a YouTube comment where it's like, you should. And you're like, it's like a you should in real life, you know? The other way around. So
okay, so let me hit you with this. Okay, so what is one thing that, like, of an idea of a project? I'm not saying like a coffee table, but like, what's the biggest thing you're like, if I could, like, that is one thing that I want to accomplish, like, in the space. Like, do you have one that's like crazy, out of this world?
No, but there's, well, maybe. Okay.
To you, at least crazy. Yeah.
I have a viral gimmick that I haven't done. It was
That's what I want. That's what I want to hear. The viral gimmick. The viral gimmick.
Okay, and it's perfect because for anyone that's ever listened to my podcast, Modern Maker Podcast, we've gone on a few rants of like river tables. Like there was a time in 2019 and 2020 where we just hit peak river tables. Everyone was building them, and they all started to sort of look the same. Like the sort of like cool factor went away because it became really normal. And I feel like if you just made an actual river table, you got a golden video. So it's like, it would be like making a terrarium table with a river flowing through it.
Yep, like a pump and a water feature going across.
And then if that goes viral, you can have like version 2 with an actual waterfall edge and have a waterfall go down the leg. That was on my list for 2020. Now that we're having this conversation, I need to make sure it's a priority.
Hey, Project 1 in the new year, that needs to be that. That sounds so freaking cool.
Because it's like, the title is good too. It's like building an actual river table.
Yep.
You know?
Dude, you absolutely
all right, I'll do it. I'll do it.
Oh, 100%. Okay,
I appreciate it.
Yeah. So going back to, you said, what's my plan for 2021? Okay, so do you ever? So my kids watch a lot of these sciencey YouTube accounts,
like Mark Rober, something like.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And there's an account called King of Random. You know that one?
I know that. Yeah. He passed. He died making one of his videos. Did you hear this?
Yeah, paragliding.
Holy crap!
He was paragliding and had an accident, and he died. But this is where I wanted to kind of lead up to. This was kind of my inspiration behind it. So one of my buddies, before I even knew who that guy was, one of my buddies, he's a realtor, and he was telling me about like scaling YouTube and all this stuff. And he goes, "Yeah, there's this guy, not Mike Roper, but what's the King of Random? He scaled his YouTube channel in a way. He got editors and all this stuff where when he died, nothing changed. Two people came to, like, a younger guy and a younger girl. They're probably in their like mid 20s to early 30s.
Like it was a show that got new hosts.
And I was like,
whoa,
that is next level production where you've scaled it in a way which I almost kind of see Bob Claggett doing this, because I remember, I think it was last year around this time of year, he shared some of the people on his team, and he's got like a creative director, he's got an editor and a creative editor, he's got like 10 people or 8 people working for him. And I was like, that's next level things where, like, if you can scale it to the degree where, God forbid, something happens to both your arms or a leg or your life, this thing continues to do its thing.
Yeah, that's really crazy to like build it to where you're not even integral. Like you're not even the key component anymore.
No, you're just another Comedy Central.
But so no, that's not that I could see Bob Claggett having a terrible hang gliding accident.
yeah.
But I could totally see Bob walking away in like 6 years and being like, "Hey guys, guess what? I'm washing my hands. You'll see me every once in a while when he feels like doing something crazy." But in terms of like having a guy to come in and film the regular episodes, I could totally see someone coming in and doing that.
I want to be one day a network, a YouTube network, because I'll see these, like, again, stand-up comedians, right? We'll take a lesson from them. There's I'm sorry if this is beeping. I don't know how to silence it. Your Mom's House. You know that. Okay, so Tom Segura, Christina Pashitsky. Prime example. The channel is called Your Mom's House. That's their podcast.
Oh, but their studios do everything, bro.
Everything.
They do.
Yes.
They do so many. They do
the Roach Motel. Yeah, they have the Doctor whatever on there. They have,
2 Bears, 1 Cave.
Yes, you now have the TV production company where it's like, so that's my goal one day is scale into a way where it's like I could be basically a platform, that a network for other stuff production.
So you need to come to the West Coast, and we need to make the Mega Shop.
The Mega Shop, the Ultra Shop, the Mega Shop. Maker Ranch. Well, Maker Ranch is already a prime name for it, right?
It was. I mean, okay. So Maker Ranch is like, you ever watch Silicon Valley?
Mm-hmm.
It's like
Love
the
it.
incubator. It's
Yeah,
the incubator.
yeah,
You know what
yeah.
I mean? It's the house
Yeah,
that
yeah.
everybody's in when they're making the show.
Yeah.
Maker Ranch 2.0. I think his plan is to build that over the next year,
Yeah.
and it'll have a big workshop space on it. But I feel like we need the Rob Dyrdek Fantasy Factory.
100%.
Fantasy Factory.
Yeah.
Where it's like just gigantic. Like when I remember watching Mythbusters as a kid, and Mythbusters was a cool show, but what was the most interesting part? I was like, they got an entire Home Depot inside their shop. They don't have to leave for the most random things. It doesn't matter if it's like a normal ass screw or like the craziest like machine thread thing. You know what I mean? Like it could be anything, and they've got it there. That's
an aisle
I
6,
think
yeah.
That's where it's at. And it would be even crazier if you were like sharing the space with other people that were creative, but you did it on you did it like a layer cake. You know what I mean? We're sharing the space, we're sharing a lot of the tools, we're sharing the unique items that we're able to get collectively, but we can also share like resources like shop assistants. Like one person doesn't want a shop assistant, but 4 people could split a shop assistant. You know what I mean? That sort of thing. Building out the podcast studios in the space, and like just having it full all the time, and being able to hire a producer that manages 6 podcasts.
Yeah.
The thing is like Joe Rogan can't do his stuff without Jamie, you know?
100%. Yeah.
And so, but I can't hire a Jamie because our show doesn't get millions of plays. You know what I mean? But we're a fraction of the size. Great. That just means there needs to be more of us involved. But if more of us are involved, then we can reach, not as many people, because that's just entertainment. But we can do the same thing for our genre.
100%. So hit me with 2021. What are you gonna go boast of? I mean, we already know you're gonna make your river table, real life river table, and then is there new approaches you're gonna take for 2021?
Okay, so I will answer the question with a 2-parter. My big learn from 2020 was series, like turning things into turning it into a TV show, like a season, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So my big project for this past year was doing a school bus tiny house. I got like a 40-foot school bus and turned it into a little tiny house on wheels. It was a fun series. I think I got 6 episodes out of it. And that was the first time I had done anything other than, I think I did part 1, part 2 video.
Okay.
But that was it. I had never split up an idea across multiple videos before. And it was silly of me not to have done it sooner. Otherwise, I would have had one video that did a few million views, but I still had that first video that did a few million views. But then it was like the next one did, like the first one did 3 or 4 million. Then the next one did like 2 or 3. Then the next one did 1 or 2. And so there was like 4 or 5 videos in a row. Similar to like probably around your bathroom. I know the bathroom had to have done the same thing. All those videos.
I did a 5-part thing. Yeah, I did a 5-part thing.
Whenever you cluster like that, all of the videos just feed each other. So if like, it doesn't matter if someone comes in and they see me build out the kitchen in the tiny house, well, they're going to start back on episode 1. It seems like the most silly thing, but if you just look at any of the on-demand platforms, if you find the show, you start on episode 1. So if we have the machine behind us, that's probably what they're saying is like, hey, get a little bit more life out of these things, make it into a series. And so, the second half of this year, I bought a house in Joshua Tree. It's on 5 acres, and it was built in 1958. It's got a lot of updating to do, and it's basically going to be my full year. You know what I mean? Like aside from like side projects here and there, like I don't have to like sit down and be like, oh, what's a cool YouTube idea? Everything is just like blinders. Whatever is in front of me is sort of what I'm tackling next. And the big 2021 thing is, man, let's just talk it out. Maybe you have a good idea. Should I make it a thing where it's just standalone Modern Builds episodes, or should I brand it as a show, like My First Flip, or like it's flipping flipping crazy.
You're flipping crazy. Flipping crazy with Mike Montgomery.
If the machine is behind us,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
they're
yeah.
telling us you gotta brand it, you gotta brand it. But maybe I've already branded it as Modern Builds. That's all it needs to be.
So if we're thinking about this out loud, one thing I started doing differently with I started also hiring out a guy that does my thumbnails too, because you could sit in front of a thing at a computer trying to figure out, you know, all these for hours, and you can have somebody just pay them a flat rate. And what I really started noticing is like going away from, I'm not really writing anymore, you know, how to make a dining room table or a DIY dining room table. I'll just write, I'm building a dining room table. And so that idea is like, I'm hoping that I'm the person that they're trying to go on this adventure with, like Demolition Ranch, right? I don't think anybody cares what his guns are going to do. I think they'll be like, I just want to see the stuff that this guy is getting into. And I think you should do the same. I mean, for God's sakes, I saw an avatar made of you, like on Ben Ueda's, like somebody created a caricature. And you guys look so badass. You guys look so badass on it.
Hell yeah.
But I think it'd be such a shame for you not to be the front and center person behind flipping my house, or, you know what I mean? Part 1, part 2, like you just got to do that, man. It's silly not to.
Okay. So I think, all right. So as we're talking, you're right. I agree with you. Like I need to be a little bit selfish in that sense of being like, okay, I got to make sure I'm the lead actor here, right? I got to make sure it's my show.
How entertaining would it be? Like you'll doing goofy stuff, like you'll kick a board or whatever, but like because from my experience of being around you, you're a very much animated character that is like one of the sweetest people I know. So it's like you put that on a camera, it's like the greatest thing ever. You know what I mean?
If you say so, yeah. But it's like it's the imposter syndrome thing, right? Like you know the one channel like Munchies, I think. It's like a food channel on YouTube. I think it's called Munchies. All of their stuff is personality driven, but they're very good at clickbaiting their titles and getting good thumbnails. And so it's what you would expect. You know, it's a clickbait video, but when you watch it, a lot of people really like the people's personalities. I hear it all the time. And the people that are fans of like Munchies, they view it as a network. You know what I mean? They're like, oh yeah, I watch Brad, and then I also watch, you know, the other chick that does her show on there and all this stuff. Like it's a whole thing. Like people are really like into Munchies, right? Maybe there is something there. I like it. I don't know. I think I'm gonna have to call it a show though. Maybe Flippin' Awesome. First time flip. First flip. Yeah, but then I can kind of intro it similar to how, so, you know, my normal intro is like, what's up? I'm Mike Montgomery. Today we're going to build this desk on Modern Builds. Yeah. But it could kind of be something similar where it's like, what's up? It's still Mike. But today we're renovating the kitchen on Mike's first flip.
You know what I say you do? I say, screw it. I say, because I'm nobody to tell you or give you advice because you're like, what, 2 million deep on YouTube.
Right? But that's the reason. No, we were talking earlier about like Makesgiving. You remember when we were talking about Makesgiving? And it was like, bro, there was a reason you and Ben Pake were there. It's like, of everybody that has a seat at the table, in y'all's generation, it's y'all two. Y'all are leading the charge of the people that are in your wave. You know what I'm trying to say? Yeah. So your opinion is 1,000,000%. Your opinion is we have the same level of opinion. Yeah. We're here.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. So here's what I say: the direction you go with. So do you listen to any country music?
A little bit. I'm familiar.
So there's so I don't know if you follow a lot of Demolition Ranch and all those guys, but there's an artist, Granger Smith. I don't know if you ever heard of Granger Smith.
No.
So Granger Smith, younger guy like us, he just has an older name like that, but he's in with like Demo Ranch and all those guys, and so he's not touring. So he did what Schultz did. He started adapting to YouTube as a music artist, right? So he created an alter ego. So go look up Granger Smith and Earl Dibbles, and I'll send you a link. He created a redneck persona on the thing. That's him just dressed up as this redneck. And it's so what you could do is, if you're gonna do a series, create an alter ego, like so you'll have like Mike Montgomery making a coffee table out of Legos or concrete, whatever, and then you'll have like Mikey M, from OKC, you know what I mean, in overalls doing this entire helm flip, and that'd be so much fun to do.
And it's me coming back in with like my little bit redneck twang that I've gotten rid of. So I start saying things like this instead.
You have to pick up dipping, so you'll be doing a lot of this on camera.
Dude, Malecki does that, right? Malecki knows what's up.
Yeah. And here's a prime example. I don't really have time to watch a lot of people in our space, but he's one of the people that I make an effort to do, because I remember when he started, he did exactly what we all did. Is like, he put a camera in front of himself and go, hey, today I'm going to show you, we're going to do how to make a welded table or whatever, right? And then he saw like, no, I'm going to take my own personality approach. And then he just went like his own theater act, and it was explosive for him. You know what I mean? And I truly go and watch his stuff because of that entertainment factor. Because I was like, you're doing stuff that nobody in our space is doing.
Yeah, no one else is bringing it like him.
Yeah.
No.
And here I am looking at the stuff that people are doing in different spaces, the same stuff, but like we get to be the front row seats of doing it. And it's just so much fun to watch and do.
Yeah, I agree. So we'll tell you. Okay, so
Okay.
for me, 2021, it's the house renovation. It's
Yeah,
turning
yeah.
it's turning all of these TV emails into watch this. If you want to buy it,
Yeah.
cool. You know what I'm
Yeah.
trying to say?
Yeah.
Basically,
Yeah.
it's the Schultz thing. It's just like, it's package it myself, and if they
Yeah.
want to buy the next one, they can have it. Otherwise, I'm gonna just put it on YouTube and be happy.
That's the way to do it, dude. That's the way to do it.
So what about you? What's big?
Yeah. So we're done with this house, and we're looking at 3 acres of land right now. And we were, so the missus wants a brand new construction build, and I've been nervous about it because I've seen what some people did in our space with a brand new construction build, and it didn't look like it popped off. But I do remember Ben mentioning to me one time saying, you're going to be in the space for a long time, so you better experiment with things, right? Don't be afraid to experiment with them. And then I remember specifically, like, one brand reached out to me about like a door insert, right? Like a glass door insert, taking a regular door and you make an insert. And I saw all these creators in that space who did videos. They didn't pop off as much as like I thought they would. And then I was like, fine, I'll just take and do this deal for the money, and that's it. I'll take an L on views. And because of the approach that I took on it, it popped off. I mean, it hit 500K in like a month, right? And so I started kind of believing more of like experiment and seeing maybe by your personality being on camera, you might capture the views. Maybe if you talk to the builders and say, I'm going to handle this one room. So whatever. But regardless, it sounds like that's going to be a little kibosh on it for now, just for the sake of land that we want to get. We're definitely getting another flip house in the next couple months. I guess the spring is going to be where we're going to be trying to settle on a piece of crap house. Hopefully, just like you, it's going to pack out, a year's worth of content. I want to do big projects. Like, I want to dig out my own pool and pour it in, I have one goal in life where one day I do want to build a house with no help at all from anybody. I'm talking about pouring footings, and I'm not talking about mini house. Like, I want a decent 1,300 square foot home. But I've always had this one specific dream where it's like building a house by hand, capturing footage of like disappointment and tears and frustration on camera and exhaustion, and then giving away that house to somebody. And then at that point, I'd like to wrap it into a some kind of bundle thing to sell or whatever. So that's
amazing.
Yeah. Well, kind of like we're going back to is like guys like you and I, like, we'll be like, I could totally do that, and then we get into it, we're like, what the freak was I thinking?
Yeah. But it's like just having the wing it mentality is important. That would be a project, though. That's like where you put a cherry on top of the career, and you're like, okay, now I can ride off into the sunset.
Yeah.
You can ride off like Earl Dibbles into the sunset.
I'll send you this thing, dude. You got to do
that.
You got to do that, dude. You honestly have to create this alter ego. As a person like you, as I love, by the way, when I was doing my
like it. It's good.
When I was doing my crepe. When I was doing my crepe flip stuff, I loved your submission to your crepe flip. You got this cowboy hat on. You showed the bloopers. You showed everything, and that was the best part. Like, the bloopers and stuff were like,
I know, man. It's funny. It's like all that personality stuff is easy to like just put aside. But this conversation has been like a really good refresher because it's what I like about your content. Like, I obviously really like the things that you build, but not to say what you're doing is working, but it's the thing that keeps me watching like 8 out of 10 of your videos instead of like 1 or 2. You know what I'm trying to say? That. And it's similar same, and it's the same thing with like Malecki. It's like, after a while, I'm probably not going to watch all of the anti-gravity videos that he's doing. And he's fine because he's pumping out bangers. So he knows what he's doing. I'm not giving him any shit. But what as soon as like it's a unique thing from John, I'm 100% in because of how much I like John, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
once
Yeah.
again, I guess none of us are special or we're all special. I don't know how it works, but you know, if it's like if that's what I'm appreciating out of
Yeah.
these guys, I need to make sure and
Yeah.
take a note. Yeah.
Yeah. We're not special, but we all definitely have an extra chromosome. That's what we all have.
Boom. We'll take it. Anything we can get, man.
Yeah. All right,
Like
Mike.
an extra chromosome sounds like a good thing. But yeah, let's close it out.
All right. So listen, man, has been by far the longest, but yet the fastest podcast I have ever done on the show. So this has been awesome. You are one of the best people to be around, and I appreciate you. So the way we end the show, and the editor, he's going to cut it to have the show open up with this. Say your name. Say I'm Mike Montgomery from Modern Builds. Well, first of all, tell people everywhere they can find your stuff.
Okay, right now.
Yeah, go for it.
Awesome. I appreciate you having me on big time. You can find me at Modern Builds on anything. I would just say Google it. Instagram,
Yeah.
YouTube, I'm everywhere.
100%. And then, okay, so cut this to be the intro of the show. You'll say, hi, I'm Mike Montgomery, and then use an adjective to describe the type of neighbor you'd be. So you say, hey, I'm Mike from Modern Builds, and I would be a blank kind of next door neighbor.
I have a neighbor, right? So like my neighbor hates me because I keep trying to hire him to work on his tractor. But he's like, bro, I don't work on. He's like, he bought a tractor and he's like, no, I have the tractor so I can use it. I'm like, no, but I need to hire you on the tractor. And he just like refuses. So I'm gonna be the neighbor that always tries to hire you for shit.
Okay, so throw that in the
right.
intro.
Okay. How's it going, everybody? My name's Mike Montgomery from Modern Builds. I'm happy to be on the show. And the type of neighbor I would be, the type of neighbor I am, actually, I have one, is the type of neighbor that's just trying to hire my neighbor for everything. I got a neighbor with a tractor, and I just keep trying to get him to do excavation work or to grade my backyard. I've tried 4 times. He keeps refusing, but I guess that's the type of neighbor I am. And I have to live with it.
Mike, that was the longest intro we've ever had. I love it. I love it. I love it. We're going to keep it in there. We're going to keep it in there.
Cool.
All right, bro. I appreciate you coming on the show, man. Hey,
I appreciate it big time too. I'm a huge fan, so I'm honored to be on the to be one of the first 10 guests.
Oh, I love it. I love it. All right, brother. Take care.